Okay, can we call the meeting to order? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Budget Advisory Committee meeting. Our first order of today is to get a chairman appointed. Do I have any motions for a chairman or a chairperson?
Sorry. I move to nominate Elizabeth Michaels.
Second.
Fine with that.
Any other motions? Okay. You want me to run through the voting part? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, so we're going to call for a vote. Any particular order you want me to go in? We'll start with Councilor Brooks,
Aye.
Councilor Sacco,
Aye.
Mayor Frank,
Aye. Aye as well.
Gonzalez, Councilor Reyes.
I'm sorry, what are we?
We're voting on the chairperson as Elizabeth Michaels,
Elizabeth Michaels.
which is right here.
Oh, hi. You don't have a name, sorry. Let's try. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Committee member Dirksen,
Why not?
Yes.
you want to vote for yourself? Councilor Pratt,
Aye.
Councilor Hurd,
Aye.
and I'll vote aye. Okay, unanimous. You got the rest of the meeting.
There we go. So the first thing we'll do is approve minutes, and then we'll do a welcome and introductions around. So if you'll call for if anybody has any changes on the minutes. Do you want to do them both meetings we can do together.
I thought it was fine. That's fine. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That passes for you.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the fiscal year 25-26 first budget committee meeting. Let's start off. We've got mostly returning, actually all returning people. We do have a new student member, and then there are some new staff around the table. So we'll go around the room and do quick introductions, and then I'll get into the heart of the matter and the presentation this evening. I think everybody knows me. I'm Don Hudson. I'm the Assistant City Manager and Finance Director with the city. I've been here about 17 years and my 18th budget, and I'm looking forward to working with all of you in the next few weeks to present our 25-26 budget and hopefully get an approval at the end of that process. So let's go ahead and go this direction.
I'm Sherilyn Lombos. I'm city manager here, and also, like Dawn, looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say and getting through and getting a new budget adopted. So, yeah.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Hillier. I'm serving my second term as Tualatin City Councilor.
I'm Valerie Pratt, Tulsa City Council President, and I can't wait for Dawn's cartoon that I know we're going to see later on.
Elizabeth Michaels. I've lived in Tualatin 18 years. I also lived here in middle school and high school, but and then moved away and back in Tualatin.
John Hannum, Tualatin resident, 9 years, and I work for Goodwill Industries.
Hi, I'm Chris Brune, Tualatin resident since around 2000, so 25 years.
Mary Durson. I was a resident since 1998. I did a stint in Sherwood for a while, but then I came back in 2014, so I've been here since.
Maria Reyes, City Councilor.
Nicole Morris, Deputy City Recorder. I take the minutes, so please turn on your mic Octavio Gonzalez, City Councilor.
Teddy Chuck Narides, a student budget council position. This is my first ever committee meeting, so nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Teddy. We're glad to have you as a student member. It's a great opportunity for us to hear from the youth in the community, so thank you for serving with us. I'm sorry, Mayor.
No problem. Brian Buenick, Mayor, Tualatin.
Kristen Sacco, Tualatin City Councilor.
Bridget Brooks, Tualatin City Councilor.
Okay, and we'll start back there. I'll give you a chance to chew. Kevin, why don't you introduce yourself, please?
Afternoon, Kevin McConnell, City Attorney. Kate Russell, Information Services Director.
Deputy City Manager.
Sid Sin, Urban Renewal Economic Development Manager. Nick Westendorf, Deputy Public Works Director. Justin Schul, Parks and Recreation Director. Jackson Porterfield, Management Analyst 2.
Everyone can see me. I'm Rachel, Public Works Director.
And we do have one committee member on Zoom, so Joe, welcome if you'd like to introduce yourself. If you can. Can you hear us okay, Joe? I'll try that. Can you hear us, Joe?
Yeah, it's okay now. It's unmuted.
Okay, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Joe Tanous, committee member.
Thank you. Mr. Warner? We like to call, so you remember Lisa. Lisa was the old William. We like to think of him as instead of just being the new Lisa, Lisa was the old William. So, welcome. He's the budget binder you'll see in front of you later this evening was a lot of hard work that William put in, along with a few others. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll deliver the budget message this evening. Go back to the agenda quick.
Don, this is Joe. The participant mics not on.
Okay. So for the rest of the evening, I'll deliver the budget message. We'll distribute the document. We'll go through a little bit of the budget process review, kind of how we got to this point tonight. The city revenue projections and details, I'll mostly go through that as part of the budget message presentation, as well as a little bit of the fiscal 25-26 overview. You see a lot of that will be intertwined in with the budget message this evening. So thank you for again being part of this process. What you'll see later tonight is a budget document that is almost 300 pages. It has a lot of numbers, as you can imagine, but it also has a lot of information. It's got general facts about our city. It has our financial policies, the reader's guide to kind of guide you through the document itself and the different components and the different sections. And then there's information about each department, division, fund, kind of each budget cost center, about what's behind the numbers that you see in the charts after that. In those sections, it starts out with a description and highlights. So you'll see in each first page of every budget, before you get into the numbers, you've got something that looks like this that talks about what the budget is as follows, what that department does. Here I ask, talks about what the Information Services Department does, and then it talks about a little bit their highlights for fiscal year 24-25. And so that is set up in the beginning of every budget before you get into the numbers. This is the first thing you see. Then we get into the next slide eventually. Hey, there we go. The performance measures. So these are measurements that each department has put together, just kind of some facts about their department, kind of telling the story in a way of what they do. So for example, with information systems, the top one there is the average help desk tickets initial response time. So this is a metric showing how quickly they respond to their help tickets. It's got, just like the numbers in the budget, you've got 2 years of actual. What we adopted is their performance measure last year, and then what their goal is for next year. So you'll see this again in almost every budget. Then we talk, after that, there you've got the objectives, and these are another word for the goals. These are the goals that the department has set up going into the fiscal year of the things that they're looking to accomplish with the dollars they have. Every budget that has personnel in them, you will then see an organization chart. And these are divided out by the people that are actually budgeted in that budget. So we have people that are split across multiple budgets, or they are part of a department, for example, community development. So Sid, our urban renewal and economic development manager, is part of the community development department, but he's funded in the urban renewal agency. So when you go to the community development page for that budget, you won't see his position listed because he's not part of that budget. So these org charts are related to the dollars in the budget that follows that. And then we also show you the total cost of those positions in that budget beneath it. In the objectives and goals, it's a mix of two things. It's the mix of the day-to-day services that the departments provide. It's the goals that are related to their ongoing services. And then it's also what's also mixed in is the council's priorities and vision and priorities. And I'll talk about those a little bit more this evening. We'll talk about what the priorities are and then where some of those are being met in the budget.
Don, I have an administrative thing I have to do real quick. I'm going to take your presentation down and claim post back from someone who stole it from me.
Sit here and smile. Yeah, that'll be hard, but thank you. Wish you had the Jeopardy theme or something go. Yeah, no. Make sure I know where I left off. So the city council met. They meet annually, and a couple years ago they met to create their 2030 vision and create these 7 vision statements. This last year they looked at them and they looked and see if those are still the vision for 2030. In 2024 they also set 7 strong vision or priority statements to meet their vision. And included in the budget tonight are a number of those actions, and we're going to talk about those in a second, or as I go through here. So the first priority in there is neighborhood engagement. And what you see up on the screen here are some of the outcomes that we've identified that would meet that priority. And these were things that came out of the last council advance in February. Give you a chance to read them. I don't like reading all the words on the slide, so I'll give you the opportunity to do that. So for priority 1 in neighborhood engagement, there are actually 3 different actions that have been identified that have funding in the budget this year. The first is in conducting a street tree inventory and researching the adaptive street tree species. In the parks maintenance budget, we've added a portion of a seasonal parks maintenance worker that could backfill regular staff to go out and do that inventory, to look at the species, determine where street trees may be missing. So to do that full inventory, we figured it was better to have full-time staff who are trained in arborists and so forth, have them do the work, but of course their work needs to be accomplished, so we're backfilling it with a seasonal parks maintenance position for the time that they'll be out in the field doing that work. The second action under priority 1 is continuing to support our CIOs. In the city council budget, we've increased the CIO grant budget from $1,500 per CIO for the grant program to $2,500 for them to utilize for different, there's a policy that of types of things they can use their grants for. The third action under priority 1 is working with our CERT program to strengthen our resiliency. There are a couple different items within the budget. In the general fund non-departmental, we are part of the countywide emergency management cooperative, so there's money in there for that membership. And then in the maintenance services budget, we have an agreement with Tualatin CERT to contribute some monetary to help for some of the supplies and so forth that they need, as well as we provide staff support out of that budget. The second priority is housing. We're looking at diverse and livable, sustaining housing options, clear understanding of the regional and local landscape, and working through some ways to look at let me step back for a second. Ways to look regionally and locally at the housing situation and do some activities around that. So the actions, it's a lot easier if I go to the actions, I can maybe speak better about this. The first action that we are looking at under this priority is examining the city's options for creating and incentivizing diversified housing. And in the community development budget, there are consultant dollars for housing strategy implementation to help us with that. Second action is continue to review and integrate our appropriate options to address green space. And in the community development budget as well, they're looking to integrate this into their clear and objective code updates that will be happening in this next year or so. And then there are other housing actions that are just incorporated into the regular staff time now. So there's not additional dollars, but they are advocating or allocating some of their staff time and their work plan towards housing priority. The third priority is economic development outcomes, clear and communication processes related to urban renewal agencies or areas, connections through the community and the development planning, and making sure that our community is engaged in supporting our economy. We have 3 action items under this priority that have funding this year. To revisit the food cart policy and specifications. Community development, there's a consultant that will help with the food cart code review because it impacts a number of the pieces of our code. On the urban renewal, they'll be looking at this as part of the core opportunity reinvestment area, the urban renewal agency district. So there'll be some involvement of that process that will be looked at on the food cart side as well. Kicking off the planning process for CORA, and that is part of the Tualatin Development Commission admin budget, and then we'll be looking to hire a consultant to help and assist in the visioning for that area. The third action, again, there are other economic development actions that are incorporated throughout the budget just in regular staff time. So Sid introduced himself over here. There's a lot of work he'll be doing that will meet this priority. Again, it's not adding any additional dollars, but part of his work plan. Of course, you can't have a priority around Tualatin if you didn't have one related to transportation. You can imagine there's a number of outcomes that could be related in the transportation arena. This is 6. We could probably, if we wanted to, spend about 4 slides just on outcomes, but these are the 6 that have been identified recently. And there are 3 areas that are in the budget. One is completing the transportation system plan update. That is currently ongoing. Will wrap up, it's planned to wrap up in fiscal year 26, and that is budgeted in the road operating fund. We utilize a contract lobbyist, so we have a contract with Thorn Run Partners for state and federal lobbying for us, and part of their charge, part of the lobbying the legislative agenda that was passed by the council was to advocate for priorities related to transportation. So that's part of the Thorn Run Partners catalog there. And that contract is in the general fund non-departmental budget. And again, a number of transportation actions that are just happening by many people across the organization in their work plans in the upcoming year. The fifth priority is related to environment outcomes. This is where the Climate Action Plan is a part of resilient response to environmental changes. A number of prioritizing the 5-year implementation of the Climate Action Plan, a number of action items related to the CAP. There are 3 different areas, or there's 2 areas, and then of course a lot of extra work that staff just as part of their work plan. The first is in the administration budget. We have a new position proposed to be a Climate Action Plan program coordinator that will help with that implementation. That is the budget side of it is programmed into the administration budget, and there's a discussion at the council tonight about Climate Action Plan funding. And then one of the other actions is programmatic updates and future opportunities with the Backyard Habitat Program. In the Stormwater Operating Fund, we have Backyard Habitat annual support that is programmed into that budget as well. The 6th priority is related to parks. Again, regularly informed on our bond projects, make sure those bond projects are completed, successful events are celebrated and improved, and then ample resources in the community. We have a number of action items under parks that are part of the budget, looking at the growth opportunities and cost structure for recreation programs on ways to potentially grow that program or make sure that's sustainable. There's in the budget this year is a recreation fee assessment. We're hiring a consultant to look at our fee structure, look at our programs, look at opportunities of how we could fund things, either expand. Right now we put the registration online, and within minutes, those classes are all, and those camps are all filled up. Part of it is a capacity issue, so we want someone to come in, look at our fee structure, to see if if the fee structure is correct, and what other opportunities there may be, and how can we expand our programs and be able to fund those. Complete parks projects, there's a number of them. The ARPA fund is paying for the Las Casitas Park renovation that's happening right now. Of course, the Parks Project Fund has a number of these projects in it, and the Parks Utility Fund has a list of projects. Celebrate and quantify event successes through innovative attendance measurement systems. We have an AI program subscription that is proposed to be part of the Parks and Recreation budget, and that will give us the opportunity to get those numbers of people that are attending events, and just a large number of things that can do to help us get those numbers and be able to celebrate how that is and what changes we might be able to make. The last one is exploring revenue opportunities to ensure a stable ongoing funding for parks maintenance. This is the discussion we've had about the Parks Replacement Fund. You'll recall that when we presented in January for the mid-period review, I talked about waiting for our new Parks and Rec director to come on and strategize the proper way forward with that. So after Dustin started, he and I had a conversation, and when I had talked before at the committee and at the council level, we talked about funding for just the kind of new stuff we're putting into play. How do we replace those factors? Well, Justin and I took a step back and said, we should probably take a bigger picture look at this. Let's look at our whole system, because there may be a point where we get hopefully caught up on the majority of the work, and so we can take some of those current utility dollars towards the replacement piece. So we are hiring a consultant to do a full analysis for us, come up with that funding plan. It's the same consultant that we use on our water master plan financial studies, so they have the background to take that look of the big picture, how long, what we need in the system, when we need to replace it, how much it would cost, and really do a deeper dive. And so we felt it was better to have someone come in, do this picture, and then we can bring that back to the council and the committee. So what I realized afterwards is I don't believe we have this in the budget, but you will see in the amendments that I'll propose to you in a couple weeks. We'll have the contract of this. We have signed the contract and we're ready to go forward. We're just getting ready to have the kickoff meeting here shortly. So we are moving forward with that, and that will be part of the budget. The last priority is the culture and identity. Some items in here is Tualatin being a trauma-informed organization, progress is shared on the IDEA committee work, strategic planning endeavors. We have 3 items that are budgeted beyond just regular staff time. Integrating skills to respond to internal, external stressors. The police department, we had got a grant for trauma-informed care training, and it was kind of a train the trainers. So now the police department will be looking to train city staff to be trauma-informed, to provide trauma-informed care. Launching a new city website. We are 75% there, Megan? 70? We are a long way there, but we're not there yet. So I tried to put her on the spot.
Look for it this fall.
There you go. So this fall, so there's money in the budget to finish that project, and where we've seen so far, it's going to look great, and that will be forthcoming. Really good changes to our current website and making it just much more interactive. The rest of the funding for that is in the general fund non-departmental budget. And the last is integrating culture and identity into the CORA and the urban renewal. Again, talked about that, this consultant we were hiring to assist with the visioning, and that's in the Tualatin Development Commission admin budget. So a lot of work that's happening on the council's vision and priorities. And so I think that what we've found in past years, we talk about there's a lot of integrated, we haven't really pointed out where those are. So hopefully that'll give you a picture of where some of those things are. And when the departments do their presentations, they may point out in more detail some that are in their budget. So we'll start those next meeting. Just a little background again on our fund structure and how the city's set up. We have 20 city funds. You maybe remember this from our presentations last year. One of those are unrestricted, and that's our general fund. The other 19 are restricted funds. The general fund makes up about almost 27% of the overall city budget. The other 73% are in those 19 restricted funds. The general fund funds things like our police department, keeping our community safe, our parks maintenance division, who keeps our parks clean and safe. It covers our parks and recreation, our Juanita Pulse Center, the wonderful programs in our Parks and Rec as well as at the Pulse Center. It also funds our library. Beyond just the stuff in Parks and Rec, the regular programs and services, there's also a number of special events and programs that are in those budgets. It's things like the Pumpkin Regatta. It's the Viva Tualatin. It's our library summer reading program. A number of special events and programs beyond just what those offerings that are part of their normal offerings. You may or may not recognize a couple people on that screen. I understand they won both their heats, so that was neck and neck between the two, I understand. Other things that are part of the general fund are just the internal services. These are all the services that help those outward departments provide their services. There's a lot of behind the scenes. It's our fleet and maintenance services, maintaining our vehicles, maintaining all the buildings that we do the work in. It's our information services. It's Bates and his group that maintain all the technology you see in our day-to-day, our computers, our networks. It's the financial services. It's my department that oversees the budget, our annual financial reporting. We pay our bills. We pay our people. Municipal court's part of the finance department. Legal services, Kevin and his staff make sure we're doing things on the straight and narrow, and we're above the board and doing things right. And then just overall city administration. Sherilyn and her department handle, council meetings, oversee the help with the council, just respond to helping all the departments do what they need to do and help provide those other services. So there's a lot of pieces that make up that 27% of the overall budget that are part of the general fund. This is just a reminder of the different fund types that we have, the restricted funds. These are restricted by Oregon statutes, it's by our municipal code, it's by other legal documents that the revenues coming into that are restricted towards a particular purpose. We fund those in separate funds so that we have the revenues and the expenditures all matched up together. And so that when someone says, are you spending it where you're legally required to spend it, we can show that match. So it's our building fund for our building inspection programs, our permits and fees. It's our road utility fund. So on the utility bill, we have a pavement maintenance charge as well as a sidewalk, street tree, reverse frontage. So that's all the revenue that comes in off the utility bills for those purposes are in the road utility fund. Road operating fund is primarily our state gas tax as well as the county gas tax, and there are restrictions under the state constitution of what gas tax can be used for. The core area parking fund are our parking lots in the core area. There's a tax on the businesses that pays for the maintenance of those. Again, that's under city code. The Tualatin Scholarship Fund, we provide scholarships to seniors in the science and technology area, and that was money that was given an endowment, and we use the interest off that as required to provide scholarships. Parks Utility Fund is very similar to the Road Utility Fund. It's a $5 per month that's on the utility bill, and it is under city code for maintenance and operations and capital related to our park system. The Parks Project Fund, that is our Parks Bond Fund. Again, it's required under the laws to be used on capital projects for what the bonds were passed for. The American Rescue Plan Act Fund was the money that we got under the ARPA Act, and that is in its own separate fund. Debt service funds, so the general obligation bonds, those are our parks bonds, and our transportation bonds are the two outstanding general obligation. These are, we have a tax levy that pays off those bonds. Again, it's restricted to that purpose. On our enterprise bonds, we have some water bonds funds and then some loans for this building, so forth, that are a part of that fund. All our utility operating funds, of course, you pay your water bill. The water's got to go to water service and the system, sewer, stormwater. And then we have our SDC funds in all those areas. And again, those are guided under state statute of what system development charges can be used on. And again, it's, the transportation SDCs have to be towards transportation projects and so forth. And then we have a vehicle replacement fund. So we replace our vehicles when the time comes, and the different areas that use those vehicles pay into this fund so that the money's there when that vehicle needs to be replaced. Now that I've given you a lot of background, let's actually get into what the fiscal year 25-26 budget looks like. The fiscal year 25-26 budget is $165,118,825.23. I'm just kidding. That is a 5.37% increase over the fiscal year 24-25 adopted budget. Start off, I'll talk a little bit about our revenues. The good news, as usual, is our revenue sources are stable. You'll see if you look at this chart that all our revenue categories are increasing, except for, and you really can't see it there, but the intergovernmental revenue is the only category that is on a decrease. And I'll show you in a second how little that decrease is and the reason behind that. But we are seeing stability in our revenue sources, and we are seeing growth in our revenues. A total of a 10.53% increase, so to about $76.4 million of revenues coming in. Our largest category in revenues are charges for service at just about 25% of total city revenues. You see there it's about just under $20 million. These are our utility rates is the biggest portion of this, our water, sewer, and stormwater rates. The big part of this increase, the 7.45% increase, are the rate increases for water, sewer, and stormwater. There's also a number of new utility accounts. So all the Autumn Sunrise accounts that are coming online, Planbeck Gardens. So all the new utility accounts also raise the amount of revenue in this category. It's just another part of that 7.5% increase. What you don't see in this category is the clean water services rates, because we have those, if you remember a couple years back, we may put those in a liability account since it's just strictly a pass-through and it's not our revenue. The second largest category is property taxes at just about 23.5%. Property taxes are seeing a 4.34% increase across the two areas we get property taxes for. That is our general fund and for just our general city levy, and then in our bond funds, our general obligation bonds. And so we have a levy in there. The other fund that gets property tax revenue is the general obligation bond fund. We are going conservative again with a 3% assessed value growth. The reason I'm staying a little conservative on that, even though we can see there is some growth going on around us, you may ask about all the new homes going in down at Autumn Sunrise. Why isn't that growing a larger percentage, or why isn't that driving this? All that section is part of the urban renewal district. So the revenues from those homes are being allocated over to the TDC, not the city's general fund. Plan Beck Gardens is also part of that area, but council passed a property tax exemption for the affordable housing complex there. So that's one reason that even though you see some growth, we're a little conservative. Second piece is industrial equipment. So when the equipment in our industrial area is taxed, as that depreciates, their assessed value drops. Where we see growth in that area is when they reinvest. Just on the unsurety of that right now, and it just in my comfort level there, I want to factor in the potential for the depreciation, so I don't want to grow things too much. And then the timing of assessments. So things you're seeing completed today or in the next few months will not be part of the 25-26 tax roll. It won't, because the taxes are assessed as of January 1st. So everything that was already completed at January 1st of 2025 is what will get tax money in 25-26. So there's a timing there. So as you're seeing things being completed now, we'll see that on the 26-27 tax roll. The general fund increase over the 24-25 adopted is about a 3.84% increase. We saw, so from 24-25 to 25-26, it's 3.84%. But you'll say, well, wait a minute, Don, you just talked about your assessed value going 3%. We ended up 24-25 higher in assessed value than we had projected. So our budgeted number of 24-25 is lower than what we brought in. So when we take the 3% assessed value on that number, it grows to higher than 3% between fiscal years. But we are assessed value growth of 3%. The overall 4.34% in here is we have a higher amount of debt service this year. So our tax levy, that increase is going up higher, though our tax levy is still anticipated to be the same 89 cents per thousand of AV that is before bond levy. But you'll see that those are the two reasons this category as a whole is increasing at 4.34. Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for all your work. I am curious, you said that the tax money from Autumn Sunrise goes into something, and it was 3 letters, but I didn't hear what it was.
So it's the Urban Renewal Agency, so the Tualatin Development Commission. So because of, all the houses are part of the Urban Renewal District, and so all the revenue from that over the frozen value goes into urban renewal to be used for those projects. So that's just reallocated. It's all the property taxes for, including TVF&R, the school district, everybody's taxes are portioned off to the TDC for the next few years.
TDC, okay, thank you.
Quick question.
Yes.
Can you remind me again what transfers and other mean?
I'll get to that in just a second.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, that's my next section. So good timing. So the transfers, there are 2 components to transfers and other. The first one is all those services that I talked about that are paid for out of the general fund, particularly like city administration, the financial services. We provide those services to all funds. but they are paid for out of the general fund. So those funds pay for their share of all the different components that they take advantage of, but are funded in the general fund. So we transfer those monies from their share into the general fund. So the transfers revenue, what you're seeing is all the money coming into the general fund, but the second component here is for project related. If we have a water project that is paid for 75% out of operating funds, but the system development charges, it is eligible for 25% pay of that project can be used from system development charges, then we transfer 25% out of the development fund to cover that share. Instead of having the project cost in two different funds, we budget it all in the operating fund, 100% in the operating fund, and then we transfer that 25% out of the project fund or the development fund into the operating fund to cover that. So as more projects are being built in the utility funds that have a system development charge component, the transfer dollars go up because they're transferring into the operating funds. So that's where you see this 45% growth. It's not all just money coming into the general fund. A large portion of that is related to the number of projects we have that have an SDC eligibility. And that makes up about 18% of our total revenues. Did that answer your question, Counselor? Okay. So here's the one area that is decreasing, the intergovernmental revenues, and that's decreasing 0.8%. This is our share of our statewide state shared revenues. This is the share of the liquor tax, the share of the cigarette tax, the share of gas tax is intergovernmental. It's the share of the marijuana tax. Other things in here are our contract with TTSD, the school district, for our SROs, our school resource officers. This is where all our grants that we're getting from other governmental entities, state, federal grants are also part of this category. What you're seeing here, the reason the decrease is two components. Primarily, our per capita part of our liquor tax was actually budgeted a little high last year, so we trued that up. So you're seeing that part of a decrease. And then grants are pretty similar, but they're a little less. We're getting a little less in grant money, but not much. The areas that are increasing that offsets those is in the Tigard-Tualatin School District for the School Resource Officer Program. We used to get 1/2 of the most senior officer for 9 months of the year. Thanks to Sherilyn and have conversations with the school district, we now get 100% of one officer for the 9 months of the year. So thank you, and thanks to the school district for agreeing upon that. We do provide 2 full-time school resource officers, so they're still only paying a portion of that cost, but we are getting more revenue for that program in the 25-26 budget. The other large component of this, the largest part of this category, is the Washington County Cooperative Library System and the Clackamas County Library System are funding for the library that comes from those 2 districts. The revenues that come in from that make up about 71% of the library's budget. You've all, I'm sure, heard about the counties, their financial condition. So we are only seeing a 1% growth in the Washington County Cooperative Library System, the WCCLS revenue this year. That is made up of 2 components, the Washington County General Fund as well as the countywide levy. There's a library levy. That's up for renewal. That's going on the November ballot, correct? So because of the issues with their budget and everything else, they have commissioned a governance and funding study, which Jerry Ann Thompson, our library director, and Sherilyn have been extremely active with that process. And they're starting to wind down that now. So we will see what those recommendations come out from that study. But the one thing that we are making clear to our residents and to our library is that the city is dedicated to continuing to fund and continue high-quality library services. So that is a high priority for the city as the county goes through this and we determine what the next steps are. Fees and charges make up about 9.5% of total revenues. This is about $7.1 million. The increase we're seeing in fees and charges this year is 3.51%. This is the largest pieces of this category are the utility fees related to the road utility fee and the parks utility fee. Because they're actually utility fees, they're out of fees and charges and not in the charges for service category. The road utility fee is indexed to the three-pronged indexing that is part of, that the county uses for the transportation development tax. It's related to, there's three indices that they have identified that kind of drive the cost of transportation projects. So the council a few years back incorporated that index into the road utility fee as well. That is at an 8.32% increase for fiscal year 25-26. The parks utility fee is not indexed. That is proposed to remain at $5 per household or per utility account. Part of that 3.51% increase is that 8% increase of the road utility fee, but it's also it's offset by that 0% in the parks. But the more accounts we have, the more revenue that comes in. So those homes in Autumn Sunrise, they have utility accounts. They're all paying the road and the parks fee. That's driving increases in this, as well as the parks. And Planbeck Gardens, even though they don't pay property taxes, they do pay the utility fees. Franchise fees is our next category at 4.3%, a little over almost $3.3 million. There's a 3.52% increase in franchise fees. This is our franchise fees for the utilities that are using the city's right-of-way under franchise agreements or the city's right-of-way ordinance. This is PGE, this is Northwest Natural, this is the telecommunications, but also there's a number of other companies that utilize our right-of-way and pay a franchise fee or a right-of-way fee. This increase is 3.5%. There are three items that we look at when we project this revenue. We look at the trends. What did we bring in this year? Do we think that's going to at least stay that? We look at projected rate increases. What's PGE's rate increase for the next year? What's Northwest Natural's? This is on a calendar year. And so this will be calendar year 25 that will get paid. For example, we get paid by PGE around April. So next April, they'll pay for calendar year 25, their portion of their net revenues. So we look at what their rate increases that may have come into play that year. We also look at the weather. Was that this last year, was it a hot summer? Was it a cold winter? If it's really cold, then more people generally use more natural gas. If it's a real hot summer, then we anticipate that people are going to use more electricity. So we do anticipate, we kind of look at what weather, so we'll look at this winter 24-25, especially January, February. Well, we've projected that in to the Northwest Natural increases for next year. And then we'll look at the potential for hot summers. I think we're just going to have to be looking at, there's going to be hot summers, there's going to be cold winters, kind of going forward and project that when we project our revenues. Excuse me. The last two categories are licenses and permits. This is about $1.8 million. You'll see this is going up 46%. This is primarily our building permits revenue, and the big increase here, and I'll show you in some dollars in a few minutes, it's related to Autumn Sunrise and then the Lamb expansion, and that's programmed in the next fiscal year. So those are the two items that are pushing the increase above the adopted 24-25 budget. And the last, our fines and forfeitures, makes up just under 1.5%. It's about a 9.35 increase. You'll see it's just over $1.1 million, so that 9% increase is not a huge number. But this is for the Avery intersection going back online. We are in the stage of last few permits, I understand, through the county, and that will hopefully be up and reinstalled here soon as the county's continuing their work on their their intersection project or their widening project. But we budgeted for the reimplementation of that traffic intersection control. I have one last one. I lied a second ago. Investment earnings, they make up about 4.5% of our total revenues. You'll see that it's a 0.02% increase. It's not just interest rates. When we talk through the general budget as a whole, you'll see that our beginning fund balances and our reserves are dropping. So we have less idle funds to be investing. But we are projecting higher interest rates because of the strategy that we have for our investment portfolio. So while we are seeing maintaining a higher level of interest rate compared to the dollar, so we had a lower interest rate last year, higher dollars to invest. Now we have a higher interest rate, and we've spent more of those monies down. So they're pretty much offsetting each other, and that category is basically staying the same. Moving over to the expenditure side, you'll see that most all categories here, again, are going up except for the capital outlay. It's about a $90 million expenditure budget. It's going up about 8.87%. You see the percentage is lower than the increase in our revenues. But if you looked at, compared those two numbers, we're spending, we have a lot of one-time expenditures this year. So our expenditures are higher than our revenues. But that's because we're using, like, we have a number of water projects that we're using the water revenue or the water reserves that we've been building up, knowing these projects were coming. On the biggest category, we've talked about this a few different times, and last year we had a real emphasis on the people that do all the work we talked about. So we talked a lot about the personnel being a large percentage of our budget. You'll see it's about almost 31% of the overall budget, and it's about 72% of the general fund budget. The things that make up these components of personal services, it's the salaries, it's the cost of living and step increases that are part of collective bargaining agreements. It's our public employee retirement system, or PERS. It's our health and dental insurance and payroll taxes. Salaries are going up about 4.38% across the organization. For PERS, PERS sets biennial rates. 25-26 is year one of the next set of biennial rates. We are seeing rate increases in we have a separate rate for our Tier 1, Tier 2 employees, for the OPSERP or the Tier 3, for all the general employees, but then the police officers that are under OPSERP have another separate percentage. And as we are now having less employees under Tier 1, Tier 2, we're seeing a shift over to OPSERP, so that growth is a little bit slower than if they were all Tier 1, Tier 2. But what we're now seeing system-wide is that OPSERP percentages, the contribution of salary, is getting higher because more employees across the state are under that program. So with that, those new rates coming into play, we are seeing the total expenditures of PERS going up about 13%. Health and dental, we are part of a insurance pool through City County Insurance Services that helps keep our premiums lower than if we were out on the open market. So they've helped keep our premiums lower than that. So we are seeing health and dental increase at about a 6.3% for the next fiscal year, even though in some areas those premiums are going up over 10%. But helpful with CIS is helping keep our premiums low, so we're only seeing a 6.3% growth of that. And as this cartoon or meme, or whatever you want to call it, shows, our employees are the greatest asset. They're our number one asset of the organization, because we can't provide the services, or we can't work on the infrastructure without everybody that does that. Part of those costs are interns. We have, for the last few years, we've had an intern in the administration division, and we have been able to utilize interns to help us with projects that, a special project that we haven't been able to get to, that's value for us, but it's also value to a student who's working the way through their master's program or other programs to give them good experience. But we're able to utilize their skill set to help with these programs. That's been very successful for us for a few months in the summer into the fall. We're also adding one in the engineering division this year, again, to help with some projects that are happening and just the workload, but experience for them, but also we get a large benefit out of that. And then I mentioned the seasonal parks maintenance position this year as well to help with street tree inventory. Capital outlay is our second largest category at about 28.4%. We are seeing a 2.67% decrease down to about $25.6 million. There are a number of projects that you'll see in the budget. Back in the capital improvement plan part of the budget, we have 2 pages that list all the different projects, all capital projects that are in all the funds throughout the budget. The primary reason for this decreasing, even though we have a large number of projects happening, is a couple projects that were either completed in 24-25 that were part of the budget, primarily the Vets Plaza. If you haven't been out there yet, now that the art's installed, I highly recommend getting out and taking a look at. It's just a beautiful plaza, and the artwork is just incredible. And their ribbon cutting will be happening on that, the official ribbon cutting on Memorial Day. The other piece that has begun, and a large number of that expenditure for that project will be happening in 24-25, is the Las Casitas Park renovation. And that's the conceptual drawing of that, as well as some pictures of the activity that's going on up there right now. Exciting project, and I saw Rich over there. Rich, when is that projected to be completed? Okay. So a lot of good to come out there as well. So these 2 projects, but some other projects within the budget that were budgeted in 24-25 that were done or have been begun, a large percentage of their project costs happen in 24-25 is driving that decrease in this category. Next up is our material and services. That's 20%. It's about 1/5 of our total budget at about $18 million. We're seeing a large increase, about 16% in this, and there's a number of reasons for that. Primarily, it's one-time expenditures that's driving that higher percentage growth. I talked a lot about the council priorities earlier in this discussion. A lot of those were one-time expenditures. There are some ongoing in there, but there's a number of those that are one-time. We also have some other items that are in the one-time, in the parks maintenance budget. There's a number of them. We've got 2 new properties that were purchased for future parks by the library and city offices, that area there. That property's purchased is now by the city and down in the Basalt Creek area. And so there's some cleanup and maintenance that needs to be done on both those properties. And so there's money in the parks maintenance budget to do those. Juergens Park Sport Court resurfacing, that project is programmed into parks maintenance, and that's a pretty high cost item as well. And then a Glowforge replacement in our makerspace. This is one of our pieces of equipment that is very popular and gets a lot of use, and it is time to be replaced. And I believe, Sarah, that this is a proper depiction of a Glowforge. I looked it up and went, I think this looks good. So again, if you haven't been to the makerspace, hopefully you've all had a chance to go over there. Go check it out. I know the librarians over there, especially Kit, would love to take you around and show you that great space. Transfers, this is that 16% increase. This is the flip side that I talked about on the revenue side. This is where all the projects, the development funds that are paying out to those utility funds, and that's driving that 16.5 or 16% increase. Lastly is our debt service. This is about $6 million of debt service. This is our general obligation bonds, and it's increasing 4.8% because the way these bonds are structured, the debt service is higher this year because as our AV grows, we can pay more towards debt service and keep our levy rate at about the same. So our total amount of dollars going out is higher than it was in 24-25 by about 4.8%. Moving on to the Tualatin Development Commission, these are our two project areas. We've got the Basalt Creek or the Southwest Urban Renewal District in the south end of town, and then in the downtown area, the core opportunity reinvestment area. What's in the budget this year, the work plan is to engage the community in the downtown revitalization planning efforts to result in three different items: a community identity, downtown design standards, and development projects, or that part of that engaging the community is to drive towards these results. Sid and his team are aggressively seeking development partners to initiate some projects in the downtown area, and he will be supporting Parks and Rec on the preliminary design of the Riverfront Park project, so that will tie into the downtown changes and the design and the identity in the downtown will flow right to that project as well. So a lot of things going on in the TDC realm this year. There's a lot to look forward to. I think it's going to be an exciting year. There's the high quality services that continue to be provided. Service levels are being maintained across the organization, and then we're weaving in council vision and priorities. So again, I think there's a lot to look forward to. Any questions on all that? If not, I know the moment you've been waiting for. The old Lisa, the old William will help us pass out, and others, if we could help pass out the budget binders.
Good job, William.
I know. I got mine, and I got the 2-inch binder. I get because I put a lot more in it. Okay. So, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm just trying to think of the word I'm looking for. Not bad. I'm a Warriors fan. I grew up in the Bay Area, so they start at 7, I think. Yes.
A couple things. I don't think that we counted votes for the committee member online.
For the minutes.
Yeah, I think that's true. It won't affect the outcome of the votes either way, but I think officially in the minutes he's a abstention. We need to make sure not important today, he can participate in the meeting in some form or fashion, because he will not count for purposes of a quorum if he can't actively participate. I know he hears us, but I couldn't hear anything he was saying.
Okay.
But yeah.
And we have no other actions tonight, so.
Just for the next meeting. Just
Okay.
make sure we talk about that.
Great. Okay, well, let's go ahead and continue on so we can hopefully get everything through the important part has been done the delivery of the budget message and the distribution of the budget. So I've gotten what I have to get done tonight done so that we can continue the process. But I'm going to go through a little bit on the revenues. So we'll start in the revenue section of your binder. We'll talk about, I'll show some things up on the slide. I do have the page numbers if you wanted to actually see it in conjunction with the whole budget. But we'll talk a little bit about revenues, and then I'll get into just kind of the process to date, and then I think we'll be ready to send you on your merry way to, I know you'll go home tonight and start reading, because I just know that now you have it in your hands. Hopefully the
Don.
council will be paying attention to what's going on, because they'll be reading their budget instead of their meeting.
Don, I do have a quick question. You're going to tell us again when we're, when you want any comments, questions that we have in this due by, right?
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and, I'll talk about that when we
Okay.
get to, because we'll do things mostly the same as last year, but a little different. So we want to go ahead and turn to page 71. This is where we start the general fund revenue. So what I'm going to do right now is just point out a couple things that I had noticed that are some themes or some bounce a little bit higher. And I'm only going to go through that part of the revenues tonight. So some of the changes in the expenditures, the departments, we'll talk about that, or feel free to ask questions in that process. I didn't get this far on some of these things I wanted to, so I'm not going to go into some depth. But I think that what I'll talk about now will give you a little bit more information about some of the things in the revenues. So on page 71, and this is also on page 82, it's the same phenomenon. So what you'll see on page 71, we are now splitting our property taxes. We get taxes from Washington County and Clackamas County. And in past years, it was all just recorded in one revenue line item. What we've done this year is we're dividing that out. So if you look at this top line, it's not that we have not received money from Washington County for the last couple of years. It's just you'll see it's part of the numbers in that Clackamas County line. What we did is we took that, we renamed the line we had that just said current year, called it Clackamas County. We added a new line. So now we're just breaking out the two counties so we track our revenues in a GL account differently. On the next page in the general fund, I'm sorry, Elizabeth.
Don, can you remind me, were we planning on the beginning fund balance being lower?
Yes,
Okay, thanks.
for what, because of some big one-time items in 24-25. On page 72, so on 72 and then also in the road operating fund, we have one new grant in the community development block grant program, one that was in 24-25, and we have one that's in 25-26. In 24-25, we did some sidewalk work up in the Las Casitas neighborhood that was funded by a CDBG grant, and that you see is the $220,000 in the road operating fund. In the general fund, we have a new grant coming this year that is funding some improvements and some changes in the Juanita Pole Center. So that's a CDBG grant. So you'll see why you got zero in the general fund and money in the 25-26, and then in that same line item different in the road operating. Page 74, this is our building fund revenue, and I talked earlier about the big increase. So where you really see it is in the structural permits. And again, this is for work out at Autumn Sunrise continuing, and then the LAM expansion project, the proposed LAM expansion project. That's the primary piece of that structural line. If we want to move on to page 84 in the Parks Project Fund, again, I'm not touching on every fund here. Most of them, I didn't see any big things happening, but feel free as you do your review, if you have questions, please let me know with those. The Parks Project Fund, you're going to see two things happening here. One, you're going to see the beginning fund balance decline drastically, and then the interest on revenues, because we have less idle funds, decreasing drastically. And again, this is projects. We've been completing projects in 24-25. Primarily, I think the big one here is the Vets Plaza, but we've also replaced some playgrounds. We've acquired the Riverfront Park riverfront access to the property out there. We've utilized, $9 million of bond funds. And in the 25-26, we have a big amount for the Nyberg Creek Trail. Easy for me to say. So when you go, why is our investments going down so much? But you also see the beginning fund balance is dropping. On page 87, the water operating fund, you'll see a big increase in the other miscellaneous income. We are completing in the water operating fund a micro turbine water project. And I believe Rachel may talk a little bit more about that potentially in the next meeting. And if not, okay, please. That way I don't have to try to explain what this is. But it's partially grant or contribution funded. And so we are anticipating two big contributions or grants in the next year for that project. And that's what's going into this other miscellaneous income line item in the water operating fund. You'll see, so if we go into the sewer fund on page 89, you will see some changes here that look a little different. So if you remember, and I mentioned this earlier, that a couple years ago, we stopped recording the revenue from Clean Water Services that we charge out to the customers, stopped charging it as revenue in our line items and just put it into a liability account. So we take it in, we just hold it, and then we send it out to them. So you'll see the zeros in all those line items because a couple years ago we changed the way we record those. In reviewing that this year, we also were looking at things and realized that these line items, the Lake Oswego, City of Tualatin Basin usage, and the Tigard, City of Tualatin usage, those are really our rates. And what this is related to is like Tigard, there are some properties out at Bridgeport Village that are actually in the city of Tigard. There's a small portion of that. We bill for that. But there's a portion of those that are, again, it's the Tigard. We used to have to track those separately. But that's really our revenue. We're charging that rate. So even though it's a Tigard property, it's our revenue because we have to charge our residents the same price. So therefore, it's like, well, why are we having this as a separate line item? We're just going to start calling it Tualatin revenue. So that we're no longer going to record it. I probably did do a really great job of explaining that. Bottom line is it's our money, it's our revenue. Instead of calling it out as a separate line item, it doesn't need to. It's just in our line items. The Lake Oswego one, the difference with Lake Oswego is that actually like Dick's Sporting Goods and some of the properties over there actually flows into the Lake Oswego plant. It doesn't flow into the Clean Water Services Durham plant. So there's an agreement with Lake Oswego, in this case with Clean Water Services in Lake Oswego. So that's why we used to have to bill it and have it recorded separately. We no longer have to do that. That's just between the two of them, even though we bill it. So we're just making some corrections and cleaning up our accounts. So that's why you'll see the numbers there. But also, if you go up the line items above it, that's 64 and 33, so that about $100,000 is actually up in the line items above in the City of Tualatin line items. I did a terrible job of explaining that. Hopefully you understand what I was trying to say. The same thing's happening on the stormwater side. It's just now being rolled up into that COT local line item and out of these two. That's on page 91. Another item you'll notice is in many budgets, we used to budget for departments that had cell phones or using had other network type charges through like Verizon and so forth. Those used to be charged out to every individual program. Well, this year we decided it was a real nightmare to track, and Information Services was tracking that anyway. So we've rolled all the cell phones into the IS budget. And so you'll see in base budget, cell phones is going from 2,800 to 45,000. It's not because he bought a bunch of cell phones for family and friends. And then network online, these are some of our air cards and so forth. Those have all been moved. Now you'll see it, this is an example from two budgets. One is just everything went from that department into IS. So this first, the middle box there is a budget that had past year's $3,300 of cell phones and then some other network-related things for $960. That's completely going over to IS, so it's now zero. This other budget has some money left in it. This actual example is the water fund, and that's because there are some services that are particular to, like the SCADA system, or there are services that are particular for that, so we left those in those budgets. So most budgets you've seen those zeroed out, but there are some that had some expenditures that we felt still belonged in that department's budget. Those are the things that I know we don't have much more time left. Those are things I kind of wanted to point out as just obvious things, some changes we made, some things that I wanted to point out to you. How's that for an answer? A little bit about the process. This is kind of how did we get here? We kicked off with the departments. So this process started back in January when we had our kickoff meeting and we gave the direction to the departments. Then the department spent a couple months putting everything you see in the binders in front of you, putting all those numbers and all those descriptions and so forth together. They spent till the end of February putting that all together. And then my department spent a couple weeks then balancing it all and reconciling, getting it ready for the first week of April, where Sherilyn and I and William and Matt sit down with every department and talk over their budget. Some of the presentations you'll see the departments will be giving you starting next week. They gave us those kind of a draft of those presentations, kind of talked about the things that they have in their budgets. It's a great week that a lot of information gets shared, and it helps me as I'm sitting up here presenting to you. It gives me that background on some of that information beyond just the normal pieces. And then all that work is kind of what got us here tonight. And while it's 3 or 4 lines on the budget calendar, it's a number of hours that the people you see around the room spend putting all this together. And then it makes my department's job, a little bit easier to then compile it all to get it to you in the format you have to hopefully get you what you need to approve our budget in a few weeks. And then we've got a couple more meetings scheduled. So let's talk a little bit about the next meetings before we get to the ultimate part, budget adoption, the end of June. So we'll meet back here next Monday night. That will start at 6 o'clock it starts at 5:30, not 5. 5:30, you can show up at 6 if you want. You'll miss the first half hour of fun. The agenda for that, we will start with the departmental presentations like we had last year. The department directors will present their budgets to you. We've got a format for each of them to share kind of everything that's been going on, what's in their highlights, what's in their goals, what's in their numbers. We'll start off with Public Works, and then we'll shift to community development, and urban renewal will be part of that presentation as well. The library will then Jerry Ann will give her presentation, moving on to Dustin and Parks and Rec. And then we should have enough time, and we'll call Chief Pickering up to talk about the police department budget. The plan and the goal, and it is easily accomplished in our opinion, is that we'll get through all those presentations next Monday night. We'll then move on. We'll give you 9 days, and we'll come back on Wednesday the 28th. That's a Wednesday night after Memorial Day, again at 5:30. We'll complete the department presentations. I'll present the internal service departments, the admin council, HR is part of admin, finance court, legal information services. So Mary, to your question on questions, again, we like to have questions up front. It is my preference so that we can get it to the departments. So if there's something that needs to be researched, they have the opportunity to do so. Otherwise, be ready with them that night. If you don't have your questions, we're giving you a week. That's kind of a fast turnaround for some of that. But remember, those are the budgets we're going through prior to that. Send them to me in advance if you can. I'd be great by the end of the weekend. so that Monday I can make sure I get them out. We'll answer some of those questions next week, or ask at that meeting. But again, we'll have plenty of opportunities after that. So don't feel like you have to have your questions in by next week. On the 28th, then again, we'd like to have them in advance. The 28th being the last meeting, having them far in advance of that helps us out, because what we'll want to do is wrap up any questions that night if possible. We'll then loop back back on some of the things we talked about tonight. The plan will then be to talk through everything we're asking you to approve, answer any questions. We'll have proposed amendments. I already know of a couple that didn't get in time to get into the document in front of you, so I know I'll have some amendments to propose that night. And then hopefully at the end of that meeting, we'll ask you to have motions to approve the city budget as well as the Tualatin Development Commission urban renewal budget. I know, like, all over the map with the questions. Ideally, by the end of next weekend for anything we want to answer on Monday night. And then,
What I heard was you have until May 28th.
yes, that is the ultimate time, because we want to have, of course, all questions by then. If you have questions by the 19th, great. If you come across it, you don't have to wait, but if you do, that's fine too. At that, if we don't have any other questions, be happy to let you go on to the rest of your evening. Council members, you have to stay.
Don, this is Joe Tanous.
Yes, Joe.
I've got 3 questions that you should be able to answer tonight.
Okay.
So one of them is that the federal infrastructure bill allocated $15 million to the city to put in charging stations.
Mm-hmm.
And at the last meeting, you said it was in dispute, and we had joined some other municipalities to hire a lawyer. And where does that stand?
It was on a 90-day hold, and we still have not heard one way or another on that. So it's still in the hands of the federal government of whether or not they're going to release those funds or not.
Okay, so my second question is, there was a motion made at the last meeting to add 100,000 or to allocate $100,000 in consulting fees for the climate action plan, and the motion failed. So where does that stand?
So that the council at the adoption added some money for consultant dollars, and so that there was some money added in this budget, or the 24-25. In 25-26, there's a new position as well as money for implementation. There's $100,000 in the 25-26 budget already proposed and baked in.
So my last question doesn't have anything to do with the budget, it's just a question. So we have excellent bicycle access in the city. And there's been a bunch of work on bicycle access from the hospital over to Wankers Corners. But there's one bridge in the middle of that road where the bicycle access stops at the bridge and then starts again at the other side. Do you know of any plans to rectify that? It's a fairly long stretch, and it's a fairly tricky, dangerous spot to get off of the bicycle lane and to go across the bridge.
So I think we'll have to look into that a little bit more. I'm looking around the room at some of the people that might have that answer, and I'm getting looks that they'll have to kind of look at it, and we'll get you back. We'll have an answer hopefully next week, and see if we can kind of give you more of an answer at that point.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions in the room?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay. Have a good night.